I've already checked out the best $2 and $5 DSiWare games, so of course I'm going to be wasting even more money on a dying service and showcasing the top $8 DSiWare games, starting with everyone's favorite plumber, Mario. Believe it or not, I'd never played a Mario vs. Donkey Kong game before Minis March Again. I knew from gameplay videos what I was getting into, but this was my first actual attempt at the series. Like every Mario game ever made, the story is highly involved, filled with several twists and turns and nuance. Just kidding. Mario and Pauline open an amusement park, they run out of tickets before Donkey Kong can buy one, so Donkey Kong adult naps Pauline. Very natural reaction. At first, the gameplay appears to be as simplistic as the story. You lead a couple of mini Marios through levels using little blocks you place around the stage. But the challenge quickly begins to present itself. In each level, you guide at least 2 mini Marios. Sounds easy enough. However, if the first Mario reaches the goal, you only have a few seconds for the next Mario to reach the goal, otherwise you lose a life. It forces you to perfectly plot out your path ahead of time. There's also a ton of variety. In the first world alone, there's springs, ladders, spikes, and a Donkey Kong that throws your mini Marios high into the air. One of the things I really enjoyed about Mario vs. Donkey Kong is the level of interactivity you as the player have in each level. Instead of plotting out your course before activating each Mario and just hoping it all works, you're constantly removing and placing blocks, activating springs, changing the direction of treadmills, and more. Plus, you have enemies like thwomps and piranha plants that show up to impede you, albeit way too rarely. Now, I don't know if this is just my genius level intellect, but Minis March Again is fairly easy. The only times I really lost a life was due to a new enemy or mechanic I wasn't used to yet. Once that surprise wore off, I tended to get a gold star on the next try. To make matters worse, the campaign is short as hell. When I started, my 3DS had a full battery. When I reached the credits, I had 3 bars on the battery. The length in Minis March Again is deceptive though. After beating the game, you unlock not only rooftop levels, but plus mode as well. Yes, the initial campaign is just the warm-up, while plus mode is the workout where your butt gets wet. Or at least that's what I hoped it was. Unfortunately, my butt remained relatively dry. While plus mode adds more complex levels that aren't simply rehashes of the first campaign, featuring a few new mechanics, slightly more hazards, and slightly harder difficulty, it still isn't a brain buster. I found myself beating plus levels with relative ease, and the only times I had issues were, again, when new mechanics were thrown at me and I had to adjust on the fly. Obviously, the true skill players go for the gold star on every level, which isn't always a given, but simply beating each level is mostly a breeze. I also found that Minis March Again was overly liberal with its awarding of silver stars. Even when I missed some coins or thought I'd taken way too long, boom, silver star. Although Minis March Again is easier than I would have liked overall, especially in the first half, there are a few levels here and there that will have you clenching your butt because finding the optimal route isn't immediately clear, and that's where the game is at its best. Sadly, World 4 Plus and the bonus levels are really the only ones that made me put baby powder down my pants. Still though, if you're able to deal with the easy levels at the start, you'll find yourself challenged by the end. And if that wasn't enough, there's 8 additional bonus levels that unlock based on the number of stars you have, and to get the final bonus level, you need 99 gold stars. I also have to mention the production values. Despite being an $8 DSiWare game, Minis March Again has the graphics, sound, gameplay, polish, and length of a retail game. Unfortunately, because the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection doesn't exist anymore, you can't share created levels online, meaning a lot of that added content is no longer available. So while it may not have the ability to share levels through Wi-Fi, the gameplay is still stellar, the production values are high, and although most of the levels are easy, they're still fun. And above all else, this is the best Mario vs. Donkey Kong game I've ever played. You've probably heard of the Mighty Switch Force games, but before that, WayForward kicked off the franchise with Mighty Flip Champs for DSiWare in 2009. When Mighty Flip Champs started, I had no idea what the hell was going on. There's no explanation, no story, nothing. The game just starts and you see a character on a 2D stage on the top screen with another character on the bottom screen mimicking the top screen's character, yet the worlds are slightly different. Obviously, I clued in after a couple of minutes that there's no jumping or running or traditional 2D platformer mechanics. Instead, you walk on the top screen, flip the world to get the bottom on the top, then try to reach the fishman thing to clear the level. It's much easier to understand what Mighty Flip Champs is by watching it rather than listening to me explain it. The thing that took me the longest to clue into is that there's actually up to 7 versions of the stage happening at once, not just 2 as the first level would have you believe. And it changes from level to level. Once I figured that out, I started to understand Mighty Flip Champs. It's a puzzle game, obviously, but the way forward is much less complicated, at first. While the first few levels ease you into the mechanics, it starts getting tough real quick. You can't just take your time to solve each level either because the game grades you. You want to aim for an S rank, except I never got higher than a D. To improve your times, you'll need to flip the world quickly and efficiently. That's another layer of strategy here. While you can't do much except walk and climb, flipping the world at the right time and place is the biggest mechanic. And on just the 6th level, you have to take a leap of faith. Time your flip correctly, you win. Fail, you land on spikes and have to restart. Spikes aren't the only hazard. Just like Nightcrawler, you can't teleport yourself into a wall. If you do, you have to restart. Make no mistakes, Mighty Flip Champs is not for the faint of heart. In just the 7th level, I spent probably 10 minutes trying to reach the end. For the rest of the levels, I'd say I averaged a 2-minute first clear time. That doesn't include all the restarts I had to do though, which likely sent me to a 5-minute average. So if you don't think you're at least as smart as I am, not an easy bar to reach, I know, you might not enjoy Mighty Flip Champs as much as I did. And yes, I did enjoy it a lot. While it could easily be a frustrating game with the amount of restarts you have to do, you do learn something new from each failure. At times, I felt like I was playing a plane-shifting Tetris with how everything's set up. If you know me, you know I can get frustrated by puzzle games that are too difficult. I never really got that way with Mighty Flip Champs. However, an undo button would have improved Mighty Flip Champs so much for me. That's because the climbing, unfortunately, has a major issue. No matter how careful I thought I was, I'd be slightly off-center when I tried to move either left or right on an L, and the game would send me plummeting into spikes. And if you're not careful while hanging onto a ladder while flipping the world, you'll fall off as well. It's little things like these that kept Mighty Flip Champs from entering the highest tier. Despite the issues I had, I always felt like the developers were smarter than me, something absolutely necessary in a puzzle game. Once I realized I just needed to trust them, I began relaxing and figuring out levels quicker. It can be daunting when you start a new puzzle and you see there's 7 rooms. By trusting the developers though, you'll eventually see the pattern. Because while you might think you're stuck, there's always a way to free yourself, like that damned roadrunner who I haven't been able to catch yet. Oh, and being able to mark a spot on all the maps does come in super handy. There's a total of 40 levels spread across 5 worlds, with most of those worlds introducing new mechanics. World 2 has switches, World 3 has breakable blocks and portals, then Worlds 4 and 5 expand on those mechanics and force you to do some white knuckle flipping in single spaces to avoid spikes and land in a portal. Each world then ends with a special level where a flip happens every few seconds automatically. You have no control. It helps break up the pacing, giving you a more frantic level instead of being able to play at your own speed. This all changes in the final level of World 5, which requires pinpoint flipping and no blinking. Then we have the final level. This is a 6.5-minute gauntlet of perfectly sadistic hell. If it wasn't so beautifully designed, I'd be calling the developers a few choice words right now. Like butthead. All in all, Way Forward absolutely nailed everything you want from a puzzle game. It's not too easy, not too hard, and there's always a solution if you just keep trying. Don't let the name fool you. While Mighty Milky Way may be a part of Way Forward's Mighty franchise, it's nothing like Mighty Flip Champs. Instead of a sequel, think of this merely as a follow-up. Sort of like how The Force Unleashed 2 is a follow-up to The Force Unleashed, except instead of the follow-up being hot garbage, this is just a different kind of puzzle game. Right off the bat, Mighty Milky Way is far less intense than Flip Champs. Instead of rushing to get to the goal as quickly as possible in as few moves as possible, then getting graded on your performance, Milky Way only wants you to reach the goal. The more relaxed approach helped me ease into this one, whereas Flip Champs just sort of threw me in the deep end and hoped I could swim and also fight sharks better than Blake Lively. The gameplay in Milky Way is also far more relaxed. Sort of like Mario Galaxy, you use planets and gravity to reach the end of the stage. Yes, it's another puzzle game. It's not my fault DSiWare produced so many good ones. Anyways, you walk around planets, then jump off of them, avoiding one-hit KO hazards like electric boundaries and enemies. It's simple yet highly effective. A lot of the jumps aren't long enough, so you have to decide, do I jump a second time to blow up the planet I'm on and keep going endlessly in one direction, or do I create a new planet with my limited candy? Because of Milky Way's relaxed nature, it's super easy. There's 40 levels total, and the first one is an absolute cakewalk. You do cap off the first world with a mechanical T-Rex who shoots lasers to blow up your planets, but even then, it's not hard. Things do get a little more involved with World 2, forcing you to use enemies against each other, but I never found myself struggling or restarting more than once or twice. This is good because it means Milky Way is fair. This is bad because I'm so good at video games. World 3 is where the concept begins to truly expand though. You have death planets that you must slingshot around, wormholes to transfer you around the map, and Donkey Kong barrels that can shoot you in different directions. The boss T-Rex of that world finally gave me my first true challenge, but the difficulty still never got close to the level of Flip Champs. And finally, World 4. It starts off easy enough, then 4-3 is expelled from Satan's butthole. It requires slingshotting, dodging homing missiles, escorting a Kirby, and building planets quickly. I truly felt challenged here. Too bad it took so many levels to get to that point. Even though I never spent hours on one level tearing my butt hair out in frustration, Mighty Milky Way is still clever in its level design. Whether it was escorting a pink blob of doom, or purposely blowing up a planet, or slingshotting around space, I enjoyed what I was doing. And if you're worried about playtime, it took me a few hours to clear the main campaign. While Flip Champs may be harder and smarter, I just really enjoyed Milky Way. After beating the main campaign though, you unlock Time Bomb mode. Here you have to beat every level again, except you only have a short time before everything explodes. This is a rare instance where a bonus mode sees me deducting points. Time Bomb mode just wasn't fun at all. There isn't enough time given to you, and seeing everything blow up on the screen is just plain annoying. I wanted a fun bonus mode to unlock after clearing the 41 main levels. That's not what I received. If you want a challenge, go with Flip Champs. If you want a more friendly puzzle experience that does offer some challenge towards the end, go with Milky Way. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's pretty crazy that we just push a button and our poop disappears. And you're right, I wanted to make this video all about $8 DSiWare games. Problem is, Zenonia sucked and Xscape, while not terrible, didn't deserve to be included here. So instead of potentially wasting another $8 on a game like Little Red Riding Hood Zombie Barbecue, I decided to go back into my library of previously purchased $5 titles to see if I could find a winner, and that decision paid off immediately. What Puzzle Quest did for Match 3 games, Number Battle does for Dominoes, or whatever Number Battle is based on. It would take me far too long to explain the rules of Number Battle. The tutorial itself takes a few minutes, but essentially you link together numbers and you earn points based on connecting the right numbers in the right places. I swear I'm not a huge fan of puzzle games, or at least I wasn't until I started buying all these DSiWare games. Number Battle just does everything right. It's a simple concept. You connect tiles together, and the more synergy between them, the more points you score. But having an opponent who can either block off what you're planning or even take advantage of some of your tiles creates such deep strategy. Then Number Battle throws things like bonus squares that both players can use to get points each turn. And there's even items. The items do add a potentially game-changing advantage, but it requires a lot of thinking. And they aren't free either. They deduct from your store, so if you mess up and use an item improperly, it could end up costing you the match. Part of the nuance with Number Battle is that while you think you're setting up the best loop to score mega points, your opponent could be doing the same thing. At times, it feels like a trading card game. You're drawing a new tile each turn and have to perfect your strategy while also interrupting your opponents. There is a drawback to this. The AI tends to ignore you. I found Number Battle's campaign to be a breeze. It's just far too easy to set up a loop, which I found to be the best way to store massive points. Just create a continuous square, then add onto it, and your score will climb like a mountain goat on catnip. Meanwhile, the AI will just sort of keep doing its thing and not really hamper you in any way unless it helps their position. It's unfortunate and ultimately is what held Number Battle into B tier. Ease aside though, the campaign itself is great. The board is always different, they introduce new squares that double your score or create a random effect, you're constantly unlocking new items, and they'll even expand the player count beyond 3. That level of progression kept me playing Number Battle even when the previous battle took little to no effort. On top of that, there is standalone puzzles. These are exactly what you expect. You're given a board and some tiles, then it's up to you to hit the target score using a limited number of turns. It starts off easy and beginner, essentially going over the basics and what you learned in the tutorial, but by puzzle number 7, things start to ramp up. You have to use sequencing, looping, and a lockout. It took me a few tries, and this was already after I'd spent an hour in the campaign. Back in the day, Number Battle would have been a game I recommended to buy instantly because of online multiplayer. Today, the servers are shut off, meaning the original longevity and potential challenge is gone. If Number Battle's AI was a little bit tougher, it'd be an easy A tier inclusion. The concept is just too well thought out. Unfortunately, because of the AI and because the online multiplayer is gone, I have to leave it in B tier. Art Style was a huge franchise on DSiWare. Pretty much every list I saw of the best games included at least one. After watching some gameplay though, I wasn't too impressed and decided to just dip a ball in the water and get Pictobits rather than dunking both in and buying the whole series. The best way to describe Pictobits is that it's Tetris turned up to 11. Blocks fall from the sky and you have to line them up horizontally, vertically, or in a square pattern to clear them. And it can be done while they're still in the air. What's truly different with Pictobits is that you take the blocks littered along the bottom screen and place them anywhere you want. This means you can form shapes at the top, middle, bottom, or anywhere else on the screen. If you like Tetris, this is that with more depth. Pictobits does throw in some permanent blocks as you progress through the levels, making gameplay more difficult. If you don't clear them as they're falling, they drop to the play area and can only be cleared by lining up a falling block. Those are tricky. Thankfully, the falling blocks do pause at times, giving you a chance to set up. Things get devilishly difficult the further you progress though, requiring fast thinking and even faster fingers. What really puts Pictobits on this list is the frantic yet balanced gameplay. While the screen does get absolutely littered with pieces at times, you can use a POW to help clean it up. The drawback is that you can't store as many blocks in your pouch, limiting your combo power. You can buy more POWs with your coins you earn from doing well though, so it's always fair. And while you're messing around on the bottom screen, an image of a Nintendo game is forming on the top screen while familiar music plays. It just helps add to the overall charm of Pictobits. Pictobits' campaign is essentially split into two parts, normal and dark. Normal is what you clear first and progressively gets more difficult. Remember that pausing I mentioned earlier? Well, imagine there were less of those and also more blocks. Yeah, the difficulty definitely ramps up towards the end. By level 10, I was using my POWs to hang on for a few extra seconds only to lose moments later. The main campaign is definitely not for the faint of heart. Then, if you're a masochist, you can spend your coins to unlock dark versions of all the levels. These crank up the difficulty even further and will test you more than a science teacher who hates kids. If you sail through the campaign and think you're hot stuff, the dark levels will humble you like a bundle. If you want a quick summary of Pictobits, it's this. Pictobits is like Tetris except harder and with a Nintendo flair. If you like Tetris, you will enjoy this. And that'll do it. I'm not sure if I'll make another video like this focusing on DSiWare games you have to buy. I'm switching things over to the 3DS eShop for a bit, so hit that subscribe button so you know when they go live.